So, I'm not really gonna lie, I've had a pretty crummy week. For those of you who don't follow me on Instagram, please make sure to go follow me on Instagram. I post stuff Monday through Friday on there, just kind of catching you up with my day and the week, and sometimes I give tips and supply information that I'm playing around with at the moment. So if you want to kind of check in with me every day, make sure to go follow my Instagram as well as my Facebook page. I'm going to plug both of those because I do post on those Monday through Friday, and then on the weekend is family time, so I don't post on the weekend. That being said, I've had a pretty crummy week. Last week I sprained my ankle and I thought it wasn't that bad and it would heal up over a couple of days. Well, it didn't, and now I am in a boot. So moving around has been a little bit difficult this week and frustrating, but also I encountered this person, not going to say who their name is, but I encountered this person who was very rigid and just everything was in this black and white persona. And it was just very discouraging. They kind of yelled at me and just really laid it on me, and I was just really annoyed, to be honest. But I thought, why not take this black and white kind of regality that they dished out to me and turn it into something beautiful and something that's art. So this week I decided to put together a video for y'all on monochromatic study, which is, for most of you, you already know, that's a black and white study with paint. And today I'm going to be sharing with you 3 very useful steps and hacks that I use to create a successful monochromatic study. So the very first hack that I'm going to share with you in having a successful monochromatic study is you need to stretch your paper. You can do this either the traditional way, which is with a staple gun, or you can do this kind of the lazy way, I like to call it, which is basically just taking your paper and using masking tape all the way around. That being said, if you're using a lot of water like I am today, you're going to want to use the staple effect because that's going to keep your paper the most taut and basically allow you to paint on it while it is super flat on that board. If you want to know kind of how I stretch my watercolor paper, I'm coming out with a course on this where I go really in detail in it. But for right now, you can check out my blog. I'm going to put a blog post up of how I kind of stretch my watercolor paper in a really simple and short, easy to understand way. So the next hack that you really need to do is, in my opinion, the most important when you're considering a monochromatic study is knowing your overall concept. And the very first thing that you're going to want to do is make sure your concept or your drawing takes over the entire page. So you want to fill that entire page up. I feel like monochromatic studies that do this, they fill the entire page, are the most dramatic and the most intriguing because they just suck you in, compared to a monochromatic study that just has a little element that's in darks and lights. Now, that doesn't mean that doing a monochromatic study with just a small element is bad. I've done that on this channel and I do like that, but I feel like the ones that fill up the entire page are just more dramatic and they have more of an element of wow to them. So that is one thing that I would say is just fill up the entire page with your illustration. The next thing that you want to make sure that you have is a wide range of darks and lights. So as you're planning out your composition for this particular painting, you're going to want to make sure you have really nice dark shadows as well as really nice white highlights. That is going to help drive your eye to where you want the viewer to see, such as in this painting, I'm trying to focus on Teddie, so a lot of the highlights are trying to focus on her as well as the darks are framing her out. So the next tack that you really need to do is know your colors. And I can't preach this enough to you guys. You really need to understand and play around with your colors. And for me, the colors that I chose for this particular painting is neutral tint plus yellow ochre. And I mixed these two together, and there's two reasons why I did this. The first one is because neutral tint is a very dramatic color that is also very opaque. So that means I can stretch this color very far, meaning I can go from very dark to very light with this particular color. That idea is fantastic for when you're doing a monochromatic study. Since we're only using one color, you want a paint color that can stretch really far, meaning you can get really, really nice darks as well as really nice light tones. The next thing, and the reason why I mixed neutral tint plus yellow ochre, is neutral tint is more of a purpley cool tone, and for this particular painting I wanted more of a sepia gray. It doesn't really communicate well on camera, but this is more of a warmer gray tone. So by mixing the yellow ochre, which is a semi-opaque color, with the neutral tint, I'm able to get that warmer tone, which I feel like communicates more of a warm and happy feeling with this particular color compared to the cool tone, which is kind of a cold feeling. So knowing your colors is really important. Now, a lot of times we forget when we're thinking about overall concepts and lights and darks. We just think about the shadows, but we totally forget about how light moves around objects and light can curve in different ways. So also make sure that you're paying attention to how would light react to certain surfaces, such as Teddie's fur would be more blotchy of an effect, and the light is going to kind of wrap around her, but in a very textured way. Compared to the tile, I tried to make it as smooth as possible because the light is going to flow over that as a smooth gradient. So studying light and shadows is very important when you're doing a monochromatic study, because basically a monochromatic study is making your concept naked. That's the best way I like to put it. You cannot hide behind color. A lot of times when we are painting with color, we try and use color to distract from our mistakes, especially with shadows and lights. But you can't do that with a monochromatic study. You really have to understand your lights and darks. And once you start to get a really good feel about how you're interpreting those lights and darks, that is actually going to communicate so much better into your color illustrations later on. And this is something that my college professor, my drawing college professor, just drilled into us. He was like, you had to make sure you get your darks and lights first. Everything has to be monochromatic until you really understand that, and then you transfer into color. So for a whole 6 months, all we did was just do monochromatic studies, and I'm so thankful he taught us how to do that, because that has actually helped me interpret better my color studies later on. So as a review for having a successful monochromatic study, the first thing that you want to do is definitely stretch that paper. You want to be painting on a smooth surface, especially because most of the time these monochromatic studies are going to be filling your whole page and you're going to be using a lot of water. The next thing that you want to do is choose your paints wisely. Make sure that you have a color that can stretch really well as a nice tone that communicates really well, whether you want a cool tone that is more harsh or you want a warm tone that is more inviting and warm. And finally, you really want to study those lights and darks, those shadows, as well as light in your overall concept and make sure that it fills the entire page. So hopefully this little video helped you and put maybe some positivity out into the world from my negative experience. And that is it for this week. I really hope y'all enjoyed this, and I will see you next time.